So I was not gonna make a follow-up video because obviously I didn't have any plans to. I mean, I didn't think people would really disagree with me all that much, but it seems a lot of people disagree with me, and they're using like the worst arguments possible like I've ever seen to kind of retort my opinion of how much better or tame the HP inflation has become compared to how absolutely sickening it was in version 2, right? So I kind of want to talk about this with you guys and, talk about the retorts I've been getting and why most of them are wrong, right? Now, of course, you can disagree. However, at least give a half decent opinion with some substance instead of just saying whatever the fuck for your own agenda, which is what I'm going to be calling out here, right? So one of the most common retorts I received in the comments was that I shouldn't use the Nicador MOC to compare because Nicador's MOC, Nicador's MOC was too easy, right? Because of the self-damage mechanics. Now, this one doesn't really make sense because, yes, Nicador was really easy with the self-damage mechanics. However, there's more to it than just that. The MOC buff for Nicador was one of the worst ones in the history of HSR, with it giving you a little bit of energy refresh every time a cycle passed, right? So the only characters that were really massively benefiting from this were, of course, Aglaia and Herda, which the buff was supposed to be shield for. Even then, it honestly didn't make an insane difference for them either. It was one of the worst MOC buffs we have had in Amphorius. Alongside this, Nicador is not the only, enemy that takes self-damage. For example, Flame Reaver, he takes off 20% of his HP every time you kill his clones, and his clones, he spawns them fucking constantly, right? It's one thing to maybe not be able to get through the clones fast enough in a 0 cycle, but if your goal is simply to clear within 5 cycles, you could probably clear faster just off of fucking killing his clones than actually doing damage to him, right? So Flame Reaver is a bit of a non-argument because all you need to do is bring anyone who can like spam AoE and it's really fucking easy, right? The other thing is, the elite HP inflation. Now, this I won't disagree with, right? Elite HP inflation has gotten much larger than compared to before. However, once again, also the elites as well have self-damaging mechanics, and I don't really understand what's the point of nitpicking the HP inflation of a specific mob to try and counter my point when what matters most is the total HP comparing both sides together. Because the reality is, if one side has massively inflated HP, the chances are the other side is much easier. I mean, they're literally doing this with Lygus in the next reset, right? Japard is one of the easiest MOCs version 3 has had in return for having Lygus have super high HP. And even then, Lygus as well has an insane debuff he puts on himself, being 50% vulnerability, and he will continuously stack this debuff on himself over time. So once again, most people, unless their teams are completely bricked, will just be able to get through Lygus within 5 cycles, right? So this entire nitpick one enemy who has gotten a lot of HP inflation without looking at the other side or the total HP inflation, it doesn't make sense, right? This is pure agenda. It doesn't make sense. It would make sense if you couldn't share cycle clearage between the two teams, but because you can clear cycle clearage, this makes it so that you legit only need one team to clear decently or good, and then your other team is gonna have a breeze in a shit ton of free time to be able to get that max stars, right? So that's my opinion on that whole entire thing, right? The next retort I received was that I shouldn't look at HP inflation in percentage, but instead of the base HP increase, right? Because percentage isn't accurate, since older characters will feel that percentage still just as much as the much more inflated HP in version 2. This is stupid, right? What fucking gacha game uses its HP inflation and compares it using base HP increase instead of just overall percentage increase, right? People don't do this for WoWA, people don't do this for Genshin, people don't do this for ZZZ, so why would you nitpick some really weird requirement to call out HP inflation in specifically HSR, right? And I want to give this explanation to you guys so I can help you all understand just how much worse the V2 HP inflation was compared to current V3, right? In version 2, when Acheron first dropped, and this was before the big HP inflation hit, and E0 Acheron was about twice as strong as every other DPS, right? Not even version 3's power creep was this bad. However, once the over 100% HP inflation hit, do you know how much you would have to invest into your Acheron to be able to catch up to the HP inflation and make her perform the same as she did legit a few fucking patches ago? You would have had to gotten E2 Acheron and Zhaoq and possibly Eidolons or Lycone on Zhaoq as well to catch up to the same performance level E0 Acheron had a few patches ago, right? 33% HP inflation in version 3, when version 3 characters have way better vertical investment, is so much more tame you don't understand, right? You could pull a Lycone for your Phanon and that instantly surpasses the fucking difference in HP inflation in the last 9 months. Just one limited pull. You could do the exact same thing for Aggie. You could do the exact same thing for Cassie. You could do the exact same thing for March. You could probably do the same thing for My Day by pulling Tribby, right? You understand where I'm getting at? You only need to put in one limited, in most cases, for most Amphorius characters to make up the HP inflation that we've been hit with. While in version 2, you would have had to put 3, 4, 5 limited into the best of the best characters in that version to be able to catch up to the insane HP inflation that was put on the player base, right? Scaling HP inflation off of base value instead of percentage is incredibly unrealistic. Otherwise, endgame simply would never be endgame, right? If characters and DPSs and supports keep getting buffed in percentage increase over previous, however, the endgame only keeps going plus 1 milli, plus 1 milli, plus 1 milli, what will happen is it's no longer endgame. Everybody in the game would be able to zero cycle with their brain off, and it would be a complete fucking breeze. Right? Now, whether or not that's appealing to you, I don't know, right? Maybe it is. However, my point is, it's incredibly unrealistic, and it's a very just weird nitpick to have for specifically HSR's HP inflation, because once again, WoWA, ZZZ, Genshin, none of these games base their HP inflation or their power creep off of a base incremental increase. That's like a number instead of a percentage, right? They all scale off of percentages, right? So yes, 33% HP inflation is much more tame in version 3 compared to the over 100% in 6 patches that we had in the last version. And to kind of round this and end this all off, right? In version 2, the only free 5-star that we got was the standard selector. In version 3, we have gotten 3 free limited 5-stars. Don Hung, he is now confirmed free, and he's obviously in the second side of 3.6. Archer is legit one of the top DPSs in the entirety of the game right now. And Ruan Mei, despite the fact that she has been power crept, it doesn't mean that her general value is bad. In fact, it's the opposite. She is still such a fucking good substitute if you don't have Tribby available for 2 teams, and specifically in APOC, she's an absolute monster, right? So you have a goated Harmony, super general, works with almost any team, one of the strongest DPSs for free, and probably the new strongest general sustain in the game, and you're gonna tell me that this, combined with a fraction of the HP inflation that there was in version 2, is somehow worse than version 2, right? Oh my god. Like, make it make sense, man. Make it make sense, right? Now, I am not some fucking Hoyo shill, okay? Anybody who has been on this channel for a long enough time knows I have made countless videos calling out this game's predatory tactics with rerun banners, its bullshittery with the HP inflation, the power creep, the shilling for Annie characters. I'm very open about criticizing this game. However, how are you going to try and twist a fraction of version 2's HP inflation and 3 more free limited 5-stars in this version compared to the previous one, and try and act like the HP inflation and everything and clearing endgame is as difficult as it was in version 2 after the spikes, right? This doesn't make any fucking sense. Love you all. You can feel free to disagree with me, you know. However, if you make a dumb point, just know I may make a video calling out your point if I disagree with it, right? I just can't understand how anyone can see 33% HP inflation and us getting 3 free limited 5-stars as just as bad as version 2. It isn't. It is so much easier, so much tamer, just much easier to deal with. And the only way it would be just as difficult as version 2 is if you legit pull and don't pull and refuse to use the free limited 5-stars the game has provided for you, right? Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.